Hi, my name is Blake Say, and I'll be refuting Kira's claim on legalizing marijuana. Her major claim is that the legalization of marijuana would boost the economy. Her secondary claims state, first, that legalizing marijuana would cut down on crime. Second, that legalizing marijuana would provide another source of income in businesses. And 3, legalization instead of prohibition of marijuana could bring in more money. All of my opponent's secondary claims consisted of minor claims within making it difficult to decipher what she exactly proposed for her secondary claims. With that, the statistics used for her first claim are insufficient for proving her point of less money being spent on prisons. Her second claim has no substantial evidence of the type or number of jobs that could be created by legalizing marijuana. Her third claim, stating that marijuana could bring in more money, is contradictory to her previous evidence that states that prices will fall, and her arguments there also ignore the downside of her evidence. Her first claim, in an article that she used, pot prisoners cost Americans $1 billion a year, it states that on the petty crime side, almost 800,000 people were arrested for possession or sale of marijuana in 2011. This would be eliminated, meaning a lot of empty jail cells. However, although that she stated that 800,000 people were arrested, not everyone who's arrested is in prison. So she would need to provide statistical evidence for the number of people that were actually imprisoned to help her point that less money is needed for the prisons. Her second claim says that in another article she used, 5 ways marijuana would boost our economy. It says that it is tough to find an exact number of jobs that would be created by legal marijuana. If it creates jobs but there's no supporting evidence for what types of jobs and estimated number of jobs, there's no substantial proof that it will benefit society, and it doesn't help to prove her point. It also states in that same article that those with records of using and dealing marijuana may find an easier time getting a job, but people would lose their jobs if they had records using and dealing marijuana, just like alcoholics do. So it is difficult to state how many that would amount to, and it wouldn't help her argument because it wouldn't provide enough number of jobs to support her claim. And lastly, her third claim. In her second claim, she stated that there would be more savings because prices would fall, but that's false because prices wouldn't fall. There would be a greater demand for the product if it was legal, and that would cause prices to rise substantially. With that, her third claim says that in an article on the Huffington Post titled 14 Ways Marijuana Legalization Could Boost the Economy, she stated that marijuana can be highly taxed. If you put that into account with how prices would rise from the demand, the taxing of the product would also raise the price, not lower it, as stated in the claim above. Her evidence that she puts in her third claim is contradictory to her support and doesn't help to prove her point. With that, her secondary or supporting claims either contradict themselves or they don't provide sufficient evidence to support them, therefore not being able to support her major claim that the legalization of marijuana would boost the economy. Thank you.
Oh, you have 35 seconds?
All right, it got a little confusing because you lay out the structure at the beginning, then you kind of preview what the responses to the structure are going to be, and then you present the structure itself. So it seems like I got two previews instead of a single preview, and that got a little bit awkward. When you got to the individual points, though, you explained yourself pretty well. I do think that you needed to do some additional research on your own to make some of these arguments stronger. For instance, I think it's a reasonable press on the first point when you say that 800,000 arrests doesn't mean that all those people are in prison. That's a valid point. Now, she said that that would save money. Almost certainly, if we weren't making 800,000 arrests, we would be saving some money. The question is how much money, and is it a significant amount? I think that this is where it would be advantageous for you to be able to present information that shows that the vast majority of people who are arrested for the crimes that she's talking about, that 800,000, don't go to prison, don't get arrested. Most of them end up with a citation or their claims dismissed, and so that the costs are relatively low, and the likelihood that they're going to be savings is minimal at best. Now, you say there's a lack of proof on her point, and I think that's a valid claim to make, but I do think your argument would be stronger if you were able to provide some evidence on that particular point, and it doesn't seem like there's anything there that backs that up. On the jobs issue, you're mostly just pressing her on whether or not there is some kind of job that's going to come about as a result of this. It seems like it's largely an assertion on the advocate's part. It's not very clear what those jobs would consist of. Okay, that's a reasonable press. The argument about people might be able to get a job because they wouldn't be discriminated against anymore, well, that depends on if they're being discriminated against because of their use of marijuana, or are they being discriminated against because they have a criminal record. That's the issue that I don't think is very clear, and I would suspect that you would find that there is good evidence to suggest that people are discriminated against because of their use of marijuana, not because they have a criminal record. I mean, everybody who's taken a drug test, for instance, they're not asked, do you have a criminal record? They say, pee in a cup and let's see what's going on here. And there are a lot of people in a variety of companies that have to do that on a regular basis, and it's not a criminal record that causes them the consequence. It's that the company doesn't want people who are using marijuana working for them for whatever reasons they have. All right, and I think that might be the way to go about developing that argument a little bit more. And then, I do think that you point out some internal inconsistencies, and there's some good analysis of the reasoning that the advocate's using on this point. I just thought that you're missing a chance. This is like a good argument that you would make if you were getting up immediately after the speech and you were having to respond to the argument. Those are all good presses to make, good reasons to challenge the conclusion, but they don't seem to reflect much additional background research and evidence. It's all, it's very analytical, which is great, but if you can back that analysis up with some proof, it's going to be a lot stronger argument on your position. All right, thank you.